Kamusta kayo? Ako si Maxim. Welcome to our channel. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Yesterday we made a reaction to Philippines Save My People, how Filipinos save Jewish life. A lot of people love our reaction and you told us that you need to react to Open Door next. So that's what we're going to do today. And I need to give a quick shout out to 4 of our subscribers. Irvin, Treblig, Onira, Liv, Jay Galan, and Elsa Masinda. You all recommend the same video about the Jewish refugee. Part 1, Part 2 tomorrow, and Part 3 in 2 days. Leave comment because we're going to read some of your comments before reacting to Part 2 and before reacting to Part 3. So it's going to help us understand what's going on because we're not native English speaker.
Yay!
I'm French Canadian, Suji style. So we need the subtitle that YouTube provide. They are not perfect, to be honest. I know that some words are not going to be accurate, but we're going to try to follow as much as we can. Check our Instagram, Max_Suji. It's a way to make sure that if something is really hot and you want us to react to, go to our Instagram. Or also subscribe. Because as you can see on screen, the 4 people that I shout out today are public subscriber to us. And you can see here that I did my research by public subscriber and the keyword Open Door and the video that we did yesterday. And 4 people that are public subscriber. I don't know how you can be public subscriber. I think you need to go to your option and people that you're subscribed to, you want them to know that you're subscribed to, because some of you are private subscriber and I don't have the logo, so I don't know that you're subscribed. So please become a public subscriber and it's gonna be easy for us to give you a shout out and read your comment.
Yeah.
So okay, let's get started. If I look at the camera sometimes it's because I'm scared that we're gonna run out of battery. Yeah. And sometimes when we don't move our body, our camera shut down, so we need to look. Damn, this look really whole video, but let's see. Financial group. Oh wow, a lot of sponsor for this video, huh? A lot of donation, yeah.
I remember the Germans came.
The mob was screaming bloody murder.
Ooh.
Kill the Jews.
We were hiding in the cellar.
They broke into the store and were looting.
Oh, they are survivors.
Downstairs after they left, and there was nothing left.
I still have nightmares to this day.
We apparently got a letter that said you have to leave Germany.
We were the last train out of Berlin.
Was will sein mit uns? What will happen to us?
The best hope for Jews was escape.
Ah, they were the Jews still in Germany.
Most of the world closed its doors, but one fledgling nation, the Philippines, did not. In this tropical paradise, thousands of miles from Europe, an unlikely group of poker players were planning a rescue.
Poker player?
These poker players were Manuel Kazon, the country's newly elected president, Paul McNutt, U.S. High Commissioner to the Philippines, an ambitious army colonel named Dwight Eisenhower, and 5 cigar makers from Cincinnati, the Frieder brothers. They had a plan that would save more than 1,300 Jews from Nazi death camps.
Wow.
A plan for a rescue in the Philippines.
Wow, the goosebumps. Wow, that's a great intro. This is going to be an epic video.
Have known that it would get to be what it did. How could anybody have imagined that a whole nation would close its eyes and ears?
Oh, wow.
And yet, you know what? I think it could happen anywhere again.
Beginning in 1933, Adolf Hitler and his Nazi thugs steadily transformed first Germany, then much of Europe, into a living nightmare for Jews.
Then in 1935, the Nuremberg laws came out, which stripped Jews of citizenship. All of their rights were slowly being stripped away.
Jews were no longer Germans, even if they had fought and bled for their country in previous wars.
My dad took all his medals, which had been framed, and took them outside and threw them into the fire.
Jewish homes were invaded.
I was in the crib still, and the SS came. I guess I was taking a nap. I woke up and my eye level was their boots. these shiny, shiny boots. I remember screaming my head
She was
off.
a little baby.
Nazi propaganda presented Jews as traitors, killers, monsters.
Kids came and threw stones at me and called me dirty Jew.
Oh my God.
And worst of all, their loved ones could be taken at any moment.
Nazis came in, knocked on the door, took my father out and put him in the Dachau.
The violence peaked in November 1938 with a highly organized orgy of destruction and terror. It was called Kristallnacht because the glass from the broken windows glittered in the street like crystal.
Kristallnacht arrived and the SS group, SA men, came to our house, came through the door, went to the bathrooms and into the living room, destroyed everything.
4 of them came in with the dogs, and I was terribly frightened. I was terribly frightened that they would take my dolls.
Oh my God.
I remember it when they burned the temple.
It was ablaze and surrounded by the German fire department, which made sure that none of the non-Jewish homes were going to be burnt.
I was asleep when the SS knocked on the door, and in order to get out, I went back into my room, dressed in the oldest clothes I had, took a stick, and went down the stairs into the hall where the mob was screaming bloody murder. And I took that stick and broke a few, I think it was paintings or mirrors, myself, until I got to the outside.
That night, my grandmother and I were all by ourselves, and suddenly stones crashed through our windows. Then I knew that they were after us. We were hunted.
When Kristallnacht was over, more than 100 synagogues had burned. Thousands of Jewish businesses were destroyed, and tens of thousands of Jews were forced into concentration camps, all in the passage of just one night. Diplomats held meetings, made speeches and passed resolutions, but little, if anything, was done.
European Jewry is really ground to dust between 2 big millstones. One is the hateful bestiality of Nazi Germany, and the other is the apathy of the governments of the world.
You know what? I need to say something. Sorry, I didn't want to pause, but I'm getting a little angry about something. We will never probably see something like the World War II, what's been happening here, but there's genocide going on in the world even in 2020. A few years ago, or maybe it was even last year in Myanmar, the Rohingya were cleansed completely from Myanmar, and they had to flee to the north of Myanmar. We know because we were living in Chiang Mai back then, we were not far from Myanmar. They were completely wiped out. And because of all the politics and all the fake news and all the things, it's really easy to twist the story to make people believe that like it's not what they think. It's not really an ethnic cleansing, but it was. And it takes always like 40 years later, 30 years later, 20 years later to finally to have the truth about this story. But most of these people are then very old. They would have loved to have the support when they were young and when they were escapee in 2020. I'm sure we will hear about the Rohingya story in 2050, you know, when it's already too late for them. And it's often the case. Nobody cares. People care about their own life until you hear that in a movie when you're older and all of those people are no longer there to tell their story or they're getting too old. This is what happened often with the World War II story or with all of these cleansing that happening in the world in 2020, because it's still happening. It's just that it's more hidden a little bit.
Yeah.
And they try to flip and use different words, but it's the same thing. So I had to say that because I've been thinking about that since the beginning of the video. So.
In one country world away, an escape plan to provide refuge for Jews was already underway. 6,000 miles from Berlin, the Philippines was a country most Europeans knew only from postcards. Much like the movie Casablanca, people lived by their own rules.
Oh.
Motor cars shared the roads with horse-drawn caramatas. Coca-Cola coexisted with Carabao.
Philippines was such a flourished
And at
country
the
back
legendary
then.
Manila
Yeah.
Hotel, the elite could sit and share a drink in air-conditioned comfort.
They still
For
are,
centuries,
but it took a
Manila
dark
had
turn in
welcomed
there.
refugees.
It was really a fantastic mix of different peoples. Czechs, Poles, Latvians, Lebanese,
Wow.
Middle East, people from the Middle East, Indians. It was a mixture. I think that was one thing that made Manila such a cosmopolitan center, because all these people coming and going, training, staying, mixing, intermarrying.
The Philippines was once a U.S. colony, but in 1935, President Franklin Roosevelt signed a law making it a semi-independent commonwealth, promising complete independence in 10 years.
I congratulate you.
President Manuel Kazon was determined his country would take its place among the great nations of the world. Manuel Luis Kazon was a complex person who made a deep and lasting impression on his country. Born poor, he moved into the world of wealth and power with easy bravado.
He had the total assurance, self-assurance, that he was the equal of anyone he faced. There is a Filipino concept that we call the colonial mentality, this idea that you're inferior, that you're never quite as good. He never had that problem.
He is a snappy dresser, you know, but he loved to dance and he loved to party too.
I know him because there's an area in Manila,
One writer says
Kazon,
he is full of
about for his
nerves.
name, I think, in remember of his
He's one of
name.
the world's best ballroom dancers, also one of the world's supplest and hardest boiled politicians.
Yes, you
He
have to
loves
be
cards and
happy.
alcohol, and he loves his country. Manuel Kazon also loved the underdog.
A man like Kazon, who himself had been a prisoner, who had gotten malaria in the field, would have known what it's like to be on the run, to have no options. A man working for the freedom of his country would certainly know what it's like when someone comes knocking at your door and says, "We want to be free."
I have been compelled to contrast our peace.
While thousands marched in the United States to protest the horrors of Kristallnacht, in the Philippines, Manuel Kazon had already gone beyond protest to action, proclaiming that barring refugees was simply not right.
Other countries perhaps did not think it that important. I don't presume to say.
His
But
daughter.
I know that Dad had the moral courage to do it because he believed in the sanctity of human life and the right of people to live life as they believe they should.
In 1937, a year before Kristallnacht, Japan's brutal conquest of China had reached the city of Shanghai,
Yeah.
where refugees had already found shelter. European citizens were in danger, so the German government had sent an ocean liner to evacuate people from the battered city. The Nazis in Shanghai also evacuated any Jewish refugees who felt in danger.
The situation led to German Jews and German citizens being brought down to Manila.
When the Jewish refugees reached Manila, they were greeted by Philip Frieder, who in a matter of hours had raised thousands of dollars for their support. Ironically, it was a German consul who suggested to Frieder that it might be a good idea if he took care of the Jewish passengers. There were only a handful of Jewish families who could afford to contribute to a refugee fund, but the Frieder brothers took on the task anyway.
Number one, they were able to. They were in a position where they could talk to the right people. Number two, they saw what was happening, and they knew that somebody had to do something. So they did.
In the meantime, his brothers back in Cincinnati contacted major refugee organizations for desperately needed funds.
The Frieder brothers worked as a unit. While Uncle Alex was in the Philippines, my grandfather, Morris Frieder, was in Washington, and Philip was involved in all pieces.
That was before World War II, actually.
Yeah.
But they had to act quickly. They had to be very quick.
Because it's
Hungarian
starting
immigrant
the
Samuel
war.
Frieder began an empire by selling cigars out of his New York City home before World War I. Eventually, all 5 of his sons, Philip, Henry, Alex, Morris, and Herbert, were in the business. Cigars were big.
Yeah.
The Frieders specialized in 2-for-a-nickel cigars. And since the best of those were made from Philippine tobacco, they went right to the source.
Philip, at age maybe 32 or 34, gets on a boat, takes him 3.5 weeks to get to the Philippines, and the rest is history, because when he's there, he meets all the growers and the manufacturers, and they start buying cigars from them directly. And then they figure out that it'd probably be more advantageous to them if they could do the manufacturing.
I think when they first got to the Philippines, there were, I don't know how many Americans were there. I don't think there were 30 Jewish families there.
Wow.
In less than 20 years, S. Frieder and Sons had become one of the biggest exporters of Philippine cigars, producing 250 million stogies every year.
Wow.
This phenomenal success was the result of hard work and strong family ties.
They were happy, family-loving, life-embracing characters. They were leaders in their community, so they seemed to slip seamlessly into being leaders
Granddaughter.
in the Philippines.
Back in Cincinnati, the Frieders all lived on the same block. They took turns overseeing the business in the Philippines.
Wow.
And as each brother brought his family for a 2-year tour of duty in Manila, they shared the big house on Brixton Hill Road.
We had a nice yard, beautiful trees and orchids around the perimeter, swimming pool, tennis court. We belonged to a lot of clubs. It was a very gracious life.
Daughter.
While the children swam and played, rode ponies and had impromptu dance recitals, the adults moved within Manila's glittering social world.
My grandmother kept a booklet of entertaining that she would do regularly, and there is an entry from September of 1939. And the people attending this dinner party at my grandparents' home in Manila were General and Mrs. MacArthur, Colonel and Mrs. Eisenhower, and the acting High Commissioner.
In fact, evenings were just an extension of the working day.
Wow.
In Manila, having fun was a serious business.
Having fun with a serious business.
Had developed a close relationship with President Kazon over the years. They met when Kazon was in the Philippine Senate, and they were young men building a business. The relationship deepened as the cigar business grew, and Kazon rose through the political ranks.
I know that Kazon is Quezon. It's just the translation. We know, okay? Sometimes we don't think that it's written like that. Sometimes it's just we know that the subtitles are going to be off.
Yeah.
In 1937, Paul V. McNutt was appointed U.S. High Commissioner for the Philippines and joined this circle of powerful friends. The former governor of Indiana, McNutt made no secret that he was aiming for the White House in 1940, which probably accounts for why President Roosevelt banished him to Manila. But for McNutt, moral conviction trumped political ambition. Urged by Jewish allies back home, he championed European Jews despite anti-Semitism among American voters.
He understood very well intolerance in American life and intolerance in American politics.
In their drive towards independence, the Filipinos had elected a Congress and inaugurated a president. But a separate Philippine immigration law had not yet been written, and in this legal vacuum, Paul McNutt realized that approving visas, one of the very few powers still held by the U.S. High Commission.
Yes, that's why.
The visa was a powerful document that meant a Jewish family could escape from Nazi persecution.
The 60 days or something? We saw that in the
Despite
other
all the
reaction we
smiles
did.
at his swearing in, McNutt's relationship with Kazon was complicated until they discovered a mutual passion: poker. McNutt loved poker so much that he even had monogrammed mother-of-pearl poker chips.
Wow.
There was one time when McNutt lost to him. When McNutt was trying to pay him, he said, "Don't pay me. Consider that my contribution to your candidacy."
The games went long into the night.
Smart!
The Frieders were regulars at the table, and so was Colonel Dwight Eisenhower, the well-liked chief of staff for General Douglas MacArthur. MacArthur had been tasked to build a Filipino military strong enough to deter the looming Japanese threat.
Wait, I'm sorry, did Eisenhower become president of the United States? Because I'm very familiar with this name. Eisenhower became president after the Second World War, between 53 and 61. So, okay, makes sense. He's famous president, of course.
Fantastic card player. He managed to pay for all of his
Susan
expenses
Eisenhower,
at West Point
granddaughter.
with his poker earnings, and he went on actually to give probably my grandmother her finest birthday presents based on his card playing earnings.
Americans like MacArthur or Eisenhower, they mingled freely and as equals with Filipinos, and the Filipinos deeply appreciated it.
President Kazon especially appreciated Eisenhower's talents.
Eisenhower was at one point writing speeches for my grandfather and was even given an office in the executive building in the presidential palace.
His analytical mind went far beyond cards. The Frieders in particular valued his ability to organize even the largest task.
Eisenhower clearly knew about the impending plans for the rescue. I think there's no doubt about it. My father was told by my grandfather that these plans were underway, and had told his son John, my father, that in fact he had been asked to play a role in this.
These friends who ultimately offered him a job making $60,000 a year, which is about $1 million in 2011 money.
Wow.
To assist in the planning for finding homes for these Jewish refugees leaving Germany. And it makes perfect sense to take a problem such as this to a man like Eisenhower, who had the ability to plan on a large scale, to be able to take thousands or thousands and thousands of moving parts and try to orient them and to push in the right direction.
The card games were held in many places, on the presidential yacht.
My father played...
Okay, we're gonna stop here because we're almost at the 1:30 and we're gonna do part 2 next time. Damn, this was a big operation. There was a lot of planning that went behind everything that has been going on, and they had to hurry up because I think Tino at one point Europe will implode, you know, because this was before World War II. What they're talking about, that story, already in Germany trying to isolate the Jewish and put them away, and eventually all of them were gonna die, as we know during the World War II. They said during the video, and they said 2/3 of the Jewish in Europe died during World War II. 2/3, 66% of all the Jewish.
Yeah,
So
die a lot.
everyone that escaped, you had to hurry up, you know, because it was gonna implode at one point.
Or any single word, just amazing country that they're really willing to do everything for the human life. I don't know, it's really like incredible. We're gonna need to continue and watch the full story.
We're gonna read your comment and we're gonna do part 2 tomorrow. Thank you for watching, everyone. See you tomorrow for part 2. Bye bye.